got a feeling it's our fourth hanger. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So we're on air. Just want to say a quick welcome to everybody to join us on this, our fourth hangout.
Fourth live chat.
Yeah, live chat on Google Hangouts. And today we're really just talking about Christmas and looking at some of the deeper issues that probably a lot of us feel around this time. Because, of course, it's an occasion of joy, family, friends, but as we all know, it's also a time for a lot of us of stress, unfortunately a lot of loneliness for some people as well. And I think this time of year, Rasheed, can throw up a lot of issues for people, can't it?
It can. It's, as you say, on the one hand, it's a very powerful time for people. For many people, it's a spiritual time, it's a time of celebration time, it's a family time, it's a time to relax, it's a time to party. But for many other people, it's a really difficult time. There might be all sorts of issues and emotions that it brings up from the past. They might be isolated, they might be alone, perhaps they've lost people at this particular time of the year. So there's all sorts of things, and not even to mention the cost, the pressures, the social pressures, the financial pressures. And if you're not careful, you can end up stressed, you can end up in debt, and you can even end up a bit depressed if you're not careful. So that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But also this time of the year is also a time that is a very powerful time to be able to pause, take a look back, and to reflect on your year. So after we've talked a little bit about coping with Christmas and getting the best out of this time of year, we're also going to be talking a little bit about on how it is that you can review your year. One of the things that I'm very mindful about is at this time of year, lots of people will soon be bombarded by all of the news reviews, the sports reviews, the movie reviews of the year, but very often people don't do the most important one, which is the review of your own year. It can be a very powerful time to stop and look at what's gone well and what's gone not so well. So that's something I'm very keen for us also to talk a little bit about after we've talked a little bit about how it is that you can cope with Christmas.
Excellent. So we've got a two-part special. First part, we're looking at, as you said, coping with Christmas, looking at the costs, the emotional heartache, the strains, and how to manage all that excess in every sense of the word, right? And then second part, we're looking at reviewing your year and really setting everyone up on a really good foundation to hit the ground running for 2013. Just a bit of housework before we kick it off then. I forgot to say I'm obviously Toom Kazunga, co-founder along with Rasheed of evolvedheart.com. I'll be the tech guy in the background. I'll also be taking questions. So questions, you can feel free to just type them in on Facebook. If you're here, great, or else even on the blog in the comment section. I'll be looking at all of that throughout this chat. So with all that said, welcome everyone, and Rasheed, let's take it away.
Yeah, let's talk about coping with Christmas, and here we are. There's not that long to go, and some of you may have even just come in from doing your Christmas shopping, or from an office party, or what have you. And I think what really I want to talk about three aspects of this. There's the cost, there's the communication, and the celebration. Let's deal with the cost first. There's no question that for many people this is a really difficult time of the year because Christmas can be a very, very overly commercial time. It can be a very costly time. There can be all sorts of expectations. So my first tip is to set a budget that you can manage and stick to it. And if money is tight, and for many people, money will be tight in these times. Some people will have been facing redundancy, or they may have had scaled down work hours, or there may be all sorts of financial challenges. They often happen. So one of the things is, as I say, set a budget that you can afford and stick to it. If money is an issue, there's a number of things that you can do. Set a gift amnesty. So don't buy each other's gifts. Have a chat with the family and the friends and so on, and agree not to buy each other's gifts, or just buy one gift, or set a financial top end of how much it is that you're going to spend on each other, £10, £5, whatever it is. So that can be very, very powerful. Or just decide to buy just gifts for the kids rather than adults and so on. So there's lots of things that you can actually do. Or just buy a gift for everybody, for one person, and that one person might be you. Get everyone to just buy a present for themselves instead of buying a present for everybody else. So there's lots of things that you can do to be kind of creative around that. And my other tip around the cost of Christmas is that this can be a funny time in terms of when people are paid as well. So not only are the gifts, there may be food and other bills and so on and other expenses. So set a budget for yourself, and if need be, set a week-by-week budget until it is that when you're paid next, because there can be a little bit of an extraordinary gap in some cases between when you have been paid before and when you might be paid next, so that you can actually manage your money and stick to that budget. So that's my tip about the cost. There's no point getting into debt for 1 week in the year. There's absolutely no point, and just a little bit of conversation will help you with that. And that leads me to nicely onto the second point, which is communication. As you pointed out before, this can be a very stressful time. It can be a very difficult time. It's a time where lots of people are often thrown together at this particular time of the year, isn't it? Families are thrown together. There's a lot of pressure. There can be a lot of pressure about who you're spending time with, how much time spend time with. You might be married, so you choose with these lot of in-laws, your family, and so on. There might be all sorts of other people that you're going to catch up with. So one of the things is, decide who it is that you're going to be spending time with, how much time you want to spend with them, how much time can you spend with them without, everybody's tempers being flared. There's no point, again, damaging relationships long term for just a couple of days, but communication is the key. For me, communication is always the breath or the death of any relationship. So again, it's really important. Decide who you want to spend time with, how much time you want to spend with them, and have that conversation early. It really does mean now. It really does mean having those conversations now. Have it gently, have it very politely, have it very respectfully. We're going to be spending this amount of time here, and it'd be great to see you for a day. Just have that conversation, and so that it gives everybody time to plan and to prepare and to get used to that. And of course, the days are rolling down, so really that's really important now. But again, it's a really important factor to also be thinking about for years to come. Think about who is it you wanting to spend time with. How do you get on with them, and so that you can make sure that communication is really good. But it doesn't stop there. Of course, once you're there spending time with people, my tip is really know when to stand up and know when to sit back down. Know when to keep quiet and when to speak up. Very often it can be very good at this time of the year not to get caught up in the arguments and the gossip and so on. Sometimes it can be very just keep your own peace. If you know that tempers are going to flare, sometimes it might be that you take yourself off to another room, or you take yourself off for a walk or whatever, just to cool down. But also this time can be a really good time to it is a time of peace and goodwill, then make it a time of peace and goodwill. It might well be now is the time to bury the hatchet. You know what, I know we didn't get on when we were kids, but hang on, let's try our best now to get on as best we can, or just for these few days when we're together. People are quite responsive when it is that you have those conversations with a warm heart. We call it evolved heart for a reason. These kind of conversations really need to be had with a warm heart, not with a cold head. Not with a hot head. Yeah, it's really, really important. And then that brings me on to the last thing. It's a time of celebration. The last of the seas is celebration. Celebration, enjoy. Take that time out. Now, it's been a tough year. This is a time to celebrate. For some of you, it's going to be a very spiritual time. It's going to be a religious time. It's going to be a party time. It's going to be family time, whatever. Do take that time to celebrate. Celebrate not just one special day, I say that, but every day, which is special. It's really important to be mindful that, you might have lost people this year. You may have had times of ill health or challenges and so on. Really be grateful for being alive, not just one life, the gift of all lives, the friends, family, and people who are really dear to you. But also when it comes to celebration, I think it's really important to know what your limits are. If you're going out, if you're partying, for example, if you're going to the office party, if one drink makes you relax and makes you very sociable and so on, fine. But if a couple of drinks makes you, irritable and so on, then know your limits. The same thing when it comes to food. Don't pay the price one day for something that you can be paying the price for a couple of weeks or perhaps months to try and burn that off. So to know what your limits are and really stick to those things. It's going to be rare that you're going to regret not having that extra helping the next day, but you might regret having had that extra helping. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be careful. You've got to be very mindful. But I also say to people,
just to butt in, chances are you'll really regret that extra drink at the office party there. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And be mindful.
Well, we're just reading, there was something in the newspaper just the other day about how 1 in 10 office workers in the city were severely reprimanded this year after the office party. So,
and that's very serious. Remember that you're always on duty. It might be an office party. As far as I'm concerned, you're always on duty. It's your reputation. People are going to be watching you. So even though it might be an office party, yeah, of course, it's about having fun and so on. But don't do something that you're going to regret and other people are going to regret, or it's going to make anybody else uncomfortable. You're still on duty. Still be very, very mindful, and still, you've still got to be very mindful of yourself, your well-being, your own health, and so on. And of course, it's not good to mix certain things. Obviously, some things just are really not a good idea to mix. Obviously, drinking drop, just don't do it. Don't go there. Make sure you've made those kind of plans for those celebrations, or make sure if if you're concerned about your safety, perhaps you can arrange, make sure you know the route home and so on. Make sure you leave at a decent hour for yourself. Make sure if you can leave with somebody else if need be and so on. You've got to take care of yourself and keep an eye out for other people as well.
Mm-hmm. That's all good practical advice. And one of the things that I thought I'd touch on, and obviously, as a parent, quite a mindful of this, and I know we've spoken about this before, is like that whole commercialization around Christmas. Yes. And it just seems to get worse like every year. It's like July and you start talking about it. But what you said was very true, because my wife and I made a conscious decision this year to say, right, this is the budget that we're going to do for the kids. We know from experience that, if you give them loads of stuff, half of it just ends up being broken or not being played with. We also know from experience that the things that, they really enjoy are the things that we can all do together. So perhaps,
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so perhaps you can think of gifts like to the family or, to each other that you can all indulge in at the same time, And that keeps on giving all the time.
Tim, that's such an important point. I think that one of the things that's most important is that it's, in the long run, it is more important that you spend time rather than money on people. It is that time. It's the quality of the time. It's not about the money. It's about the quality of the time. And very few people, if you ask people, particularly when they get to adulthood, what is it they value most? It's that time, it's that love, and that's attention. And I think that sometimes we can, if we're not careful, get caught up in just spending that money, or perhaps sometimes out of guilt, or that we should be keeping up with somebody else, or that we feel bad that we haven't spent that time. Really, I think that now is the time to be spending time. And I like your idea about other things that you can do as a family, perhaps family-related gifts and so on, and that kind of thing can be really lovely to really enjoy and get the most out of that particular time.
No, absolutely. So, and just talking of which, there's something on the talk radio. So I've been doing a bit of time in the car, so I have the talk radio on, and this crazy story of a woman who's unemployed actually, but two young kids. And she's actually, and I think the kids were 2 and 3, or 1 and 2 even, but young. And she's saved up for the whole year and is going to spend like £2,000 each on the kids. So like, iPads and, just crazy sort of stuff that, like a 2-year-old, let alone a 1-year-old can even like appreciate. But I think that just sort of like encapsulated what we're talking about, that people get hung up on what it is that you're giving, and then just forget about the underlying importance of why you're sharing something.
That's right. And when you sit down usually with anybody, it could be with kids, it could be family, it could be loved ones, and you actually are having a conversation from heart about where you're at, or what your circumstances are, or how it is that you genuinely want to spend Christmas. Most people are really responsive. It can be a really powerful time to be very honest about that. But there's no point being overly caught up in that commercialism. I think the thing that you talked about doing with your wife, that thing about setting that budget that is affordable and that's sensible and that you think is good for everybody, is very, very, very wise. And as you said, it's really interesting the point you were making about the toys. Sometimes that overindulgence and giving young children too much stuff, it is likely to be broken. It may not be appreciated. And I think it's important to be mindful about our obsession with possessions and so on. Tends to begin when we're very, very, very young. So we need to be very, very mindful that the most important thing is to let people know that the most valuable thing is themselves, and that they are of value in themselves. It's not about how it is that they are going to, what they have in comparison to the other kids and so on. If you can really make a child really feel that they have value in themselves, that can set them up for life.
No, that's very true. And so what also do you think then about, the underlying messages around Christmas? I mean, obviously, you have people, this is a holiday for everyone, but people of all faiths, won't be working, people of no faith whatsoever. How should people, what do you think? I mean, how do people look at Christmas, say, you're not a Christian, you don't have a strong faith in that sense. What would you say would be the important messages that people should still look for, regardless of your, your belief?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a time, for most people, whatever it is that their faith, or whether it is that it is a time that they particularly recognise in terms of their faith or not, it is this time of the year, and there are other religious holidays around this year. is just very much a time to, it's a time often for family, it's a time for connection. You know, there's real universal themes. It is that time of getting together, a time of appreciation. It is also that period of time toward the end of the calendar year where people will be looking backwards and looking ahead. It's one of the things that does tend to bind us all together, whatever it is our background, belief system or faith. You know, what's really interesting is that very often how it is that we work and our working patterns tends to be a real common thing. So whatever somebody's background, this is one of the few periods of time where one can actually often stop and reflect and connect to those people who are really important to them in one's life. So, you know, I think that one of the things is that also living in a place like this, where it's very multicultural, it's really, really interesting that lots of people do recognise and are observing the fact that this time of the year does mean different things to different people. So, but I think it's good to be it's good to just be mindful about that, you know. And I think that people are, you know, particularly in the UK, where lots of the evolved heart people are based, are very, very mindful about that. But it's good just to be mindful about where people are. Have a conversation with people. Ask people what this time of the year means to them. You know, let it be about what it is for them. But it's But I mean, I think that leads me really nicely onto the second thing that we're going to be talking about, because I think that sometimes something that's really important is missed around this time of year, which is that real time to just stop and take the time, not only for those loved ones or the family that you might see as part of Christmas or however you see this time of year, but also taking that time for yourself and taking that time to find out where is it that I am, where is it that how am I feeling right now? Am I taking care of myself? I think that can be a lot of external focus. It's a huge opportunity. It's one of the few opportunities where you might have that little bit of downtime where you can actually check in with where you are personally, professionally, in your relationships, in everything else, and to have a little bit of time to reflect, to give credit for where you've already been, and to plan ahead.
Okay, no, that sounds good, and I guess this is that whole period, isn't it? Where of course, traditionally you have your New Year's resolutions, and we've spoken about that, of course, previously, but it's this whole period, isn't it? As you said, it just naturally seems to lend itself to that sort of period of reflection.
Completely. I mean, we're going to be in January, of course. By January, in a couple of 2 weeks' time, when we get to January, whenever it is, you know, 2 or so weeks' time, when it gets to January, there's suddenly going to be this huge focus on where am I now, what my goals, and so on. And we're going to be doing of course, we're going to be doing a special talk. I think it's on the 18th of January. We'll post up the details early in the new year of that, which will be a real opportunity where people will be able to really look at where they are, where they're going, and their goals. But I think the thing is that what's beautiful about this segue just before is it gives you that opportunity to kind of reflect, to kind of look back as we head toward the end of the year. What's interesting, Thomas, this has been quite an extraordinary year, hasn't it? It's been another year whereby, for many people, it's been a tough year financially, it's been a tough year economically. Many people who might be, including people who might be watching this, may have faced a lot of job uncertainty. They may have had redundancy. They might be running a business, and it's a very, very tough business climate. Even for some very, very, very successful business, it is. As we know, that's not just here in the UK, that's globally. We've got people here who tune into Evolved Heart from the States and overseas and places like Europe, and that, no doubt, it's been a tough time. It's been a tough time in the Eurozone. It's been so one of the things that's really interesting at this period of time is that very often what we see is those news reviews, as I was saying, the sports reviews, the celebrity reviews. But for me, the review that I would like to see people do is the review of you and your own life. So I kind of want to invite, if anyone's watching this, I've got just a couple of questions that I want to invite people to just think about and just to consider. And I think the first thing is, you know, what's gone well for you this year? You know, very often when we see things like the news, it's always about what's not gone well and the disasters and this and that, you know, that kind of big stuff. But very often we don't give ourselves credit for what's gone well. You know, what's gone well for you personally and professionally. And you might want to take a piece of paper and you might want to write it down. You might think, you know what, went really well. That particular work project went really well. I was really pleased about that. I was really pleased about that. Give yourself credit for that. It's extremely, extremely important for you to recognize, because sometimes in all the busyness of business and all the busyness of our career, we don't give ourselves credit for the things that have gone well for us. So what's gone well for you personally and what's gone well for you professionally. And also within that, I'd ask you to think about what have been the highlights of the year. You might think, you know what, we had a great family time here. I was really pleased about doing that. I was really pleased when I, you know, made these particular changes over there. For me, moving was a highlight, or doing this was a highlight. Give yourself credit. Write it down, because very often we can forget. So bring that to your attention. My next question is, what have been the challenges this year? You know, what's not gone so well? You know, what have been the challenges? Capture those challenges. There might be, again, capture them, what have been the personal challenges, and what have been the professional challenges. I know a number of people this year who, they've had major health challenges. Some people have lost loved ones. There've been, as we're talking about, there may have been career kind of challenges. Give yourself credit also for the fact that you're still here. Sometimes, that the fact that you've managed those challenges is a huge accomplishment. So you may have actually found that you've been able to weather the storm of all sorts of challenges that you might not have thought you ever did before. So give yourself credit. But then what's important, my third question is, what is that you've learned? So both from the things that have gone well and the things that haven't gone well. What have you learned? It's really important to take that learning. You might think, oh my goodness, that was a disaster, or that work project was a disaster. But what's the learning from it? For me, it's always about, I talk a lot about in the book Soul Trader about, and I think I talk about in Become Who You Are video, which is now on Evolved Heart. I talk a lot about the attitude of an athlete, because athletes really learn from every race that they win and that they lose. If they hit a hurdle, they're adjusting their stride plan. So it's really, really important to look at, you're going to learn far more from the things that have not gone well. You're going to learn far more from the difficulties, from the separations, the upsets, the things that haven't gone well in business or in your career, than you are ever going to learn from the things that go well. So it's about how is it that you can take the learning from that. You might think, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I've learned about that. I've learned that I need to take care of this. I need to take care of that. Really capture that. What is that learning? So take a little bit of time to capture the learning from both what's gone well and particularly things that have been challenging for you. And then the last question that I want to begin, second to last in a way, point that I want people to begin to think about is actually, what are the priorities, mindful of all of that stuff, mindful of the highlights, mindful of the challenges, mindful of things that have gone well, mindful of things that haven't. What are the 2 or 3 things that it is that you need to prioritize for the year ahead? You might think, you know what, for me, it's about, I really now do need to think about going for that more senior job. I now do need to think about bringing a few more customers into the business, or I now need to really think about where it is that I'm going to be based and living next year. For me, it's really spending a little bit of time on my health and my well-being, because I've had a few health challenges. Just perhaps write 2 or 3 things. Very often we have this huge list, but very often it's more, what can be more powerful is just what are the 2 or 3 things, the priorities. And then begin to think about, well, what help and support and resources is that you're going to need. And that's going to set you up for what we're going to be doing in the new year, which is really looking at how it is that you can set your goals, and if you're wanting to set goals for 2013 and what's really important for you for 2013. So this review, this reflection can be really, really powerful way for you to take stock, for you to give yourself that time and to be and breathe, and to give yourself credit for where it is that you are, and to begin to give yourself that time. Don't feel too caught up in needing to address all that now. Now might be a time that you really do need to relax, to recharge, to have fun, to rejoice, whatever it might well be. But at least then you've kind of taken note of the things that you're going to need to be addressing over the next weeks and months.
Excellent. And so we're looking at, on the positive, what have you achieved personally, professionally, that you're really proud of, the highlights? What are the challenges, setbacks that you've experienced in the year? And then critically, what can you learn, or what have you learned, or what could you learn from those? Yeah. And I think obviously we're spoken, and this has been a fantastic year in many ways, but as I've told you about, also been a lot of challenges as well, and I really resonate from that. And one thing I'd say is that anyone can make mistakes, and that's fine, right? But it's if you don't learn from those mistakes, yeah, and like just really look at yourself to say, right, this I did, that was wrong, I should actually do this instead. Or if you don't do that, then it's almost like doubles or compounds the mistake, doesn't it? Yeah.
They say, isn't it, the definition of madness is doing the same things over again and again, getting the same result, but expecting a different one. So it's really important to take this time. And this is one of the things, if you do this as a regular review, you can constantly look at this. You can think, oh my goodness, I achieved that. I've completely forgotten I've achieved that, and I've done that. And okay, here are some of the mistakes and some of the challenges, some of the setbacks. And actually, are these things recurring again, or have I learned? What am I addressing from these particular things? And then that's why my last point is very important. What tools, support, and resources do you need in order to move forward? Perhaps sometimes it is that you need external help and support. Don't be afraid to do that. And this is why I call, because the point that you're making, this is why we call Evolved Heart, Evolved Heart. Because it is about that evolution. and that you're more mindful, but you're also far more just in tune of what it is that resonates with you at heart. You know, what is it that resonates with you at heart personally? What is it that really chimes with you at heart in terms of professionally? How is that you want to be in terms of at heart, in terms of your relationships? That is exactly what Evolved Heart is for. It's that raised consciousness that we're far more mindful about just what it is that does and what doesn't serve us. And it, therefore, when you do this, it can simplify life. You think, you know what, actually, next year, the only things I really need to take care of is my health. Just make sure I can take care of some key friendships and some relationships and some family kind of stuff, and that I keep my eye on the ball and maybe just think about moving ahead or applying for a new job at work. That's why also when I was talking about the the Christmas stuff, that thing about avoiding gossip and all that kind of stuff is really, 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 really powerful. And we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, a lot when we return to this in the new year. And it's one of the reasons why, Tim, in the I'm mindful that we just put the book Become Who You Are kind of Coach Yourself program. There's a lot in that about that kind of stuff, about how it is that you just carry yourself and all this kind of stuff about what kind of stuff you've got in your head, you know, so that your head is quiet and calm enough that you're able to focus on the things that's really important. Because most people, guess what? They know what the kind of things that they should be doing, but there's just all of the noise. They get lost in all of the noise. So it's really, really important that you just stop, you pause, you reflect. This quiet time that sometimes people can have, you know, if you're able to build in a little bit of time over Christmas, if you can, that little bit of time for you, it might just be an hour or two, it might just be a day, carve that time in, do this review, be honest with yourself. Where are you at? What's really working? What help do you need? What support do you need? How could you be helpful to others? This can be really, really, really powerful. So in all of that celebration, try and see if you can find yourself that little bit of calm and so on. Don't just be completely lost in all the noise and then completely overwhelmed, so that when by the time it gets to January the 1st, that you're kind of then all at sixes and sevens and you're wondering what it is that you should be doing. No, you should be really clear about what's really important to you now, and therefore you're going to be far more resourceful and be able to look at that with a refreshed come January the 1st.
Excellent. And so what other tips perhaps can you give people? Because I mean, some people, you know, for a lot of people, if you haven't actually done that before, you know, it must be quite a daunting thing to look at yourself and try and, like, you know, peel back and just like reveal what's really there. And, you know, to look at yourself in that way can be quite challenging and daunting for a lot of people, for most people, I'd have thought. So
you're really right.
How,
it might be
can you give people to help them do that during this period?
It might be that, I think you're absolutely right, Tim. It might be this kind of reflection, you know, because some people and many of the people who are here at Evolved Heart will be used to this kind of reflection, or other people who are just discovering Evolved Heart might be very busy in their career or their lives or whatever, and perhaps just for the first time be thinking, hang on a minute, you know, okay, all's going well in my career, or there's this going on or that going on, but actually, or I've just been so busy looking after whoever or whatever, have I had time to ask myself where I'm at? So this mere process of beginning to ask yourself these questions, actually, where am I at? What's going well? Is very, very powerful. You know, it might be that you ask yourself, you know, what do I feel is working? What is it that is working for me? What am I not happy with? What do I feel happy with? What do I not feel so happy with? What support do I need? It requires being very honest with yourself, first of all. Just write that down. You know, again, there's an exercise in the Become Who You Are video program that actually gets, I believe, that gets people to think a little bit about how they see themselves and how other people see that see them. So it might be that if you're going on this kind of journey of self-discovery, that you might spend a little bit of time with people and ask them, you know, what are my good points, what are my strengths, and so on. What are the areas that you think I could develop, and so on. And ask yourself that. You know, ask those people who you know, like, and trust, that kind of stuff. And it really does depend how deep. You know, how deeply you want to go into this particular kind of stuff. But for me, there tend to be some key areas. You know, if you like, your personal life and your professional life. What are you happy with? Start off with yourself and your health. How are you physically feeling? Are you giving yourself enough time to sleep, to rest, and so on? Are you feeling refreshed, or are you feeling ratty the moment that you're thinking? How is your sleep? How is your diet? How is your health and your well-being? Is that something that needs to be given some attention to? And you can see that what happens a lot of the time is that by the time we come to January now, there is a presumption that you should be going to the gym, you should be doing this and this and this. For me, there's no shoulds. This process begins with you stopping and asking yourself, and actually, what's most important to me? which is one of the reasons why people will come back to this in the new year. People often struggle with that goal setting is because that they often feel that they should be doing this, or they shouldn't be doing that. No, this is actually a process where you yourself are actually asking yourself, what chimes with me? One thing I would throw into the mix is, what support do you have around you? What people do you have around you? There's a lot of the stuff here, and I'm keen for us to zoom into lots of this in 2012. It is often in 2013 when we come back to those. Depending who you are, there will be different aspects that will emerge. For some of you, it may well be about, now is just a time where it's about the basics, yourself and your health. Maybe you've had a major health scare. Maybe you've lost somebody. Maybe it's just about taking care of yourself, taking care of your health and your well-being. I coach, of course, lots of people in business and so on. They might be running a successful business, what have you, but they neglect themselves. You've got to start at that fundamental. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of your health? And you've got to care enough about yourself. Again, evolved heart. If you don't care enough about your heart's going to give in.
Absolutely.
So, they say the heart has got a lot of emotional intelligence. This is why this stuff about heart is really, 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 really important. So where are you at? What feels right for you? What do you feel as though you need to address to do? But also, one of the things that can be very, very powerful is just to think about, well, again, in those questions, it said, what are the 2 or 3 things that you feel as though you need to prioritize? Don't feel as though you need to address everything. It might just be 2 or 3. In most people's cases, in my experience, there are just a handful of things that they need to address. And that's going to make you feel as though, you know what, it's not too overwhelming, and it also makes you be absolutely focused on what is the key thing that needs to be addressed, because sometimes, there's been a key thing that hasn't needed to be addressed for years. If it is about the one conversation that with loved ones or with friends or with family or with the boss, then have that time. Again, these things all interlink with this Christmas thing we're talking about. It can be a very powerful time to really, it's peace and goodwill. This is what this time is. It's about peace and goodwill. You've got to be at peace with yourself, and you've got to genuinely wish goodwill on yourself and on others. That's what this stuff is about. We can pontificate about all day long. It depends what kind of lens you want to look at that. But that is a universal message in this particular time of year. Whatever somebody's faith, belief system, or what have you, whether they're a humanist, whether they're of any particular belief system, it is about that. It is that opportunity for one to be at peace with oneself and at peace with one's fellow man and woman. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And so then, in terms of the, because when you touched on setting up those goals, and I know a few questions come in which touch in this area, and I think also we've spoken about this many times, which is, you got to keep it real, right? Because otherwise you can have 10, 15, 20, which, just isn't going to help anyone, let alone you. But it's really like winnowing down all those to what's really important. How can people do that easily? Because they're all important, right?
It's all important. But my tip would generally be, and particularly given a year like this, I think that for many people, and so many people I've worked with and coached with of all backgrounds, it's been a tough year, it's been a challenging year, it's been a busy year. I would say just identify what you feel are those things that are important. Take the learning. This is what's gone well. This is what has been challenging. Here are the 2 or 3 things that seem to be most important to me. Here's perhaps the tools and resources and support I need. But I would actually say, let's not set goals right now. I think that for most people, what they really need to do, and I've been saying this to a number of my clients, actually, I want you to take this time for you, for your family, for your loved ones. Enjoy it, relax. That's what this time of the year is about, because many people may need to recoup. And and sometimes for many people is that without that time to rest and to relax and to rejoice and to celebrate and to let your hair down and to enjoy life and to appreciate life, or to have that walk in nature, you're going to be setting those goals from quite a pressurized place. And you may not have had that time for that real clarity to set in. I would actually say, let's not worry about goals. When we come back in the new year, then perhaps let's take about goals, having had that time. But you can let these things gently marinate. You can see what of these things here do I want to prioritize. But I'd say don't feel pressurized in terms of setting goals now. If you do feel that you've had that time to relax, then perhaps, yes, you might want to just set one goal for your professional life, one goal for your personal life, one goal for yourself, and what have you. But for many people, I'd say give yourself this time for you to relax, because even if you set them as soft goals or ideas of goals you want to set out, it means that you've got the rest of this time just to relax, unwind, and then really pick that piece of paper up and really be committed to them come 2013.
Right, okay. And I think one thing as well you said earlier, which I thought was quite important maybe to just go back to, was, you know, when you're talking about what have your challenges and setbacks been and mistakes people have made, etc. I guess it can be quite easy to be really hard on yourself, which is not the point, is it? I mean, and as you said, that whole concept of peace and goodwill starts with yourself, you know, giving yourself peace and generating goodwill to yourself. Don't beat yourself up over
this is a very good point. Don't beat yourself up at, and also this word mistakes. Let's be very careful about mistake. You know, a mistake is going to assume that you have perfect knowledge. Very, very few people do things relatively, in percentile terms, in percentage terms, do things that if they had better knowledge, that they would have otherwise would have done. So is it actually, or is it something, you know, do you know what I mean? So you know, the thing is, it's really important that in coaching, there's one of the central tenets is that you know, that there's no failure, there's only feedback. And I think, again, and this is why I always talk about having this mentality of an athlete, that it's about always fine-tuning your act. We're constantly fine-tuning your act. It's about learning. It's about that learning and development. Is it a mistake? You know, sure, it's something that you would rather not do. So be mindful even about language. I think language is something that yeah, I'd love for us to do a whole Evolved Art talk about the kind of things that people say to themselves and that kind of self-talk. But you're right, you need to be on your own side. You really do need to be on board. You've got to decide, are you on your own side or are you not? You're not going to achieve anything. This is the fundamental thing. You will not achieve anything unless you're on your own side. And perhaps even more importantly, you're not going to be happy and content in life unless you're on your own side. And for me, that being happy and content with life is what comes first. When you really do appreciate you, only when you appreciate you can you truly appreciate somebody else, and then can you appreciate it. It's that absolutely fundamental. And this is why, you know, with all of the stuff that I do, this become who you are, this kind of paradoxical stuff. Becoming who you are is this journey of really accepting who it is that you are, being at peace with yourself, and therefore being able to step out from that particular kind of place. So I don't know, mistakes, most people actually don't make mistakes. Most people do things that with better knowledge they wouldn't have done. And hey, this is the opportunity of reviewing that. You've really got to be on side with you. You've really got to be on your own side. It's the biggest difference between people who are happy and content in life. It's the biggest difference between people who tend to progress and those people who aren't. So if you found that that's been a habit for you, here's a little tip for free, everybody. I was with a client of mine the other day, and she's a lovely lady. She's had some serious challenges this year. She's had some health challenges. Like many people, she's also lost some loved ones this year. And I was coaching her the other day, and I said, I want you from now on to see your life as though you're driving a car. Now, if you've got a car, you are at the wheel, and you've got these wing mirrors. You're not going to spend all your time looking back at the wing mirrors. You're not going to be spending all your time in the past. You're going to be present. If you're not present, you're going to be bumping into the car in front of you. You're going to be thinking about the side riding before. You've got to be present in this car. You've got the wing mirrors for reflection, which is what we did at the beginning bit of this call. You reflect gently. Ah, what's that? Can I move back? Blah, blah, blah. And then your focus is on where it is that you are presently and that little bit ahead. That's what it's actually about. Apply that to your life, and it will be very, very powerful for you. The only place that you can make any changes is here in the present. But we get caught up with presence rather than presence. You've got to be present.
Absolutely.
You've got to be so present. You've got to be really present.
That's a really, you know, that's a great analogy. I love that that car with the wing mirrors analogy, because it's so true. You have that, you know, you just have that strip in front. Yeah, you can see further ahead, but you got to focus what's in front. Otherwise, as you say, you're going to crash. You're going to do something crazy. And of course, you just glance once in a while in the rear views just to sort of keep you on track and just to reflect and see where you've been. So I think that's a very powerful analogy, actually. I love that.
Yeah, and you're not going to set on a journey, and you're not going to set on a journey generally with 1,000,001 direction. You've got a sense of, you're going to have a sense of the key places that you're going, or a couple of places that you're wanting to go. Again, the same thing with goals and all the rest of this kind of stuff. So, you know, one of the things that when we return to this in January, and I'll reach for my diary if I can see it, and just remind me, I think it's the 18th of January, but we'll post up the date in the next live chat at the same time. there are lots of myths and so on around goal setting, and I'm going to be exploding a lot of those myths about goal setting and this and resolutions and so on. A lot of it is just complete claptrap. Most of the time we set goals that are completely out of context because we should or whatever. Oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. No. But first, for me, I think that I think it's really important that we will begin to wrap this up where we started. This is a time to celebrate, to really reconnect to yourself, to reconnect to what's really important to you, whatever it is that you believe, what is really important to you. That's again the invitation this time of the year. What is it you believe? What's really important to you? What's really, when all said and done, what's really important this time of year? There is that tough side this year as you began. When you're opening this up. This is a really, really, really tough time for many people. Many people seem to lose people at this time of year. It's some of the hardest seasons. For some people, lots of older, this can be beginning of a very, very cold spell. Some people even seasonally affected and so on. So it's really important that you've got to know what's really important in life. Otherwise, don't just let another year just fly by, pass you by, and you've forgotten what's really important to you in life. That is a real mistake. Ask yourself what is really, really most important, what is really dear to me in life. Appreciate it. Be thankful for it. Don't take it for granted. Do something crazy. Tell somebody that you love them whilst they're still here and whilst they're still alive. How about that? Spend some time on somebody rather than spending money on them. How about that? Wouldn't that be revolutionary?
Absolutely. Make something. Make something. You don't have to be You don't have to be a great artist to do a little gift or to do something that takes a bit of time to put together.
It's very powerful. You're right. This little bit of creativity can be really powerful. Making somebody a card, making somebody a gift. A client of mine had the other day, she baked me this cake, and she said this year she was baking. She was making exactly that. She was baking. She was making. She was just doing things this year. It gave her a lot of joy. It gives people that extra sense of joy. You can do something that's really, really personalized. You've got to be creative. You've really got to be responsible for your own life. You can't just be. Again, you've got to be responsible for driving your car. Again, you can't think too much about what somebody else is doing in their own car when you're driving. You can't do that. It's the same kind of thing. Lots of this stuff we know. For me, a lot of this becoming you, a lot of the stuff about evolved heart is what I call not brainwashing, mind washing, washing the mind, washing the brain, reconnecting somebody to themselves, washing all that debris away, reconnecting people to what's really important, simplifying, just stripping all that layers away, what's really, really, really important. And that example there is just such a lovely one, a really lovely one. Make something, spend a little bit of time with somebody, give somebody that little bit of call, but also do make sure, I think that the other thing that I do want to say, and I've touched on that, do ensure very often that many people have very, very busy lives and lots of responsibilities. It's so important that you take that little bit of time for you. If you don't take care of you, you're not going to be able to take care of any of the things that it is that you're wanting to do in life. So it's extremely important that you are able to get that rest that you need at this particular time of year. If that means that you need to get somebody to look after somebody else for a day, you need to do that, because you're going to need to have the energy for the year year ahead. I, for one, for example, I very often at New Year's Eve, I'm not necessarily out partying. Maybe it's because I practice what I preach as a coach. I'm often spending a lot of time in clarifying everything, simplifying everything, making sure I'm rested, and so on and so on. Of course, I make sure I have time with loved ones. Important people are important, and so on. But it's really important. I know it's really important in the work that I do, and in order to try and to move things further forward, that I am rested and I'm relaxed. And that is a key thing about this time of the year. Again, if you look at the seasons, this is a time of year whereby, in terms of the movement of the seasons, where lots of animals and so on will be hibernating, so that being restful, regrouping, gathering that energy, and so on is really important. Very often we are out of kilter with the flow of life. Be mindful. Notice your own energy flow. If you need to be getting more sleep, catch up on the sleep, because you're going to need that energy. For many people who are listening to this, watching this, have got major challenges that they need to address personally, professionally, career, business, where they're living or whatever in 2013. You need to be energized for that. You need to be ready for that. So maybe if there's anything I want to get people to begin to think about for 2013 is, what is the kind of personal and professional development you might be wanting to do, that you've got the skill set and the support that you need, and what's the support network that you might perhaps need in terms of moving forward. But also, I mean, another thing I'll just throw into the mix: if you're going to buy presents, buy something that's actually educational. Why don't you buy something that's really useful to help them develop their self? Buy yourself a present, something that is an investment in yourself, because that is going to be the thing. I often say to people, why spend money on, for example, okay, some things are very practically important, but you can spend something on one item that is going to last you a season, but you could spend some money on something that's going to last you your whole life. Invest in yourself. If you've been thinking, actually, you know what, I am going to want to, I want to develop my career, and they're not sending me on a management course, could it be that thing that you're going to invest in yourself, and you're going to put yourself on that particular course? These are some of the things that it is that you might need to begin to think about, and these are some of the things that no doubt we're going to pick up on in the next live chat, because I think for many people there's going to be some real serious stuff that they're going to have reflected on, Tom, over this period of time, and some real stuff where people are saying, actually, how can I do this? How can I do this? Who's going to help me to do that?
Good stuff. And just to add to that as well, I'll say on the site, on the Evolved Heart site, obviously we've got loads of information, content, exercises, meditations that are freely available. So you can just search on the blog to find out information, and you'll probably find tips and techniques that Rasheed's already shared in there that can help you with some of the issues we discussed today. And if you do want to go deeper, there's also information that we've put in the shop, including what you referenced to earlier, Rasheed, the Become Who You Are, Coach Yourself video, which really guides people through a more in-depth look at what, at how they can become who they are. Yeah.
Quite right. And we'll probably talk about that a lot in January, because I think for some people will be at that point where they'll be thinking, actually, you know what, now is a time where I'm wanting to take charge of where I am and where it is that I'm going. Some people are resourceful enough and they've got the support around them and they're focused enough to be able to do those things. But some people it's why people come to people like me as a coach. They want that coaching to help them be on track. And the thing about the Become Who You Are program is that it brings together many of the tools, the techniques, the kind of things I'm talking about here, the kind of things that you'll see on the website in a focused way, as a program where I'm kind of coaching you through a smidgen of the cost and so on from the comfort of your own home, so you can coach yourself, so you can actually begin to coach yourself. Because I certainly know when I was on this whole self-development journey, Tom, I listened to quite a lot of self-development talks, videos, and so on, and I took that time to invest in myself, and we all learn in different particular ways. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put together, and why we wanted to put together the kind of materials that are here on Evolved Heart for people to dip into. And that particular program, which isn't going to be for everybody, is the kind of thing that, if you are ready, is going to really help you just to focus, okay, where am I? How can I simplify my life? How can I do this? How can I do that? And so on. And so for many people, if you're beginning to think about things that might help you for the year ahead, then that's one of the tools there that might be very, very useful for you. But I'll say more about that in January as well.
Excellent. So in January, I think it's the middle of January, isn't it, that we're set aside as the next date for our get together on Google Hangouts for our live chat.
Yeah.
And obviously that'll be a great one, because we'll be looking in a lot more detail at goals, and also at achieving in the year ahead.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Yeah, achievable goals. All this stuff. We'll be looking at all this stuff about resolutions, people to set them, not to set them, goals to set, whether to not to set them. I've got all sorts of views about that. Sometimes goals are a good thing to have. Sometimes that they can tie people up. I think they're a good thing to have, but not to hold too fast to. They can change. Things can change. The world can change. So we'll be talking a little bit about goals, how to set them, whether to set them, how many to set, how they can work for you, a little bit more self-reflection kind of stuff, some of the stuff that we've begun to touch on today, and then some tips. And I'll also be, for those people who are interested in stuff like the Become Who You Are and the other tools that we've got on the site, I'll also be talking a little bit about more about those kind of things, just in case you're wanting to work with any of those particular tools for you in 2013. But it is an interesting one, Tom. Before we close, it is very interesting that I would say it's funny that I'm going to say something that almost sounds as though it's slightly different to what I said earlier. It's funny that we very often only tend to think about our goals at 2030, at the beginning of a new year. Actually, you don't necessarily have to wait for the year beginning, and that can, it's something that you might want to think about at any time in the year. But this time of the year, as we've said, review, refresh, focus, what's really important, and that's going to put you in good stead for 2013. And I'm really looking forward to that. That talk. And if you've got particular questions for that, just email them in to us at admin@evolvedheart.com or post them on the site and so on, because I'm sure that people are going to have lots of stuff to chew on over Christmas. So if you can't wait, and you've been there, you've been there and you've had your time to and so on, do feel free to post something up and say, hey guys, can you cover this?
Yeah, absolutely. People can find us on Facebook and also on the site evolvedheart.com, where we have contact box. People can drop us messages, questions, and we always answer what's shared with us. So we really appreciate whenever we get those. And I'll just like to, I guess we're looking to wrap up, but obviously we covered about how to reflect on what the year's been. So just to quickly wrap up those questions, people should be looking at what have your achievements and highlights been. They should give that some thought, write those down. They should also then look at what the challenges and setbacks they've experienced have been. And again, write that down. What have they learned from all of those? And what do they think they can learn moving forward? What do they then need to prioritize in 2013? And also just to look around what sort of help and support they can get to hand to help them, as they try to.
And that they may already have. And that they may already have, very often there might be that kind of stuff that they already have. What can they already dip into? And again, we'll touch on this again in the new year. Absolutely.
Excellent. And I'd just like to quickly say that, love Christmas. Always love Christmas. Growing up with my mum, she was always like really into the whole, I guess, English traditional side of it, and she'd make her own mince pies and Christmas puddings and all this, everything, the carols, etc. But I'm also very conscious. And I try to reflect at this time of year about those people who've lost, as you touched on. So I'll just personally, just right now, I'd just like to, invite all of us just very quickly just to say, right, let's just give a bit of thought to people actually in pain right now, people who don't have the loved ones, people who've gone through some loss right now, all over the world, and just reflect just for a few seconds, a minute or so, and just to say, right, let's think of all these other people as we're so grateful for what we have ourselves,
Well said. Well said. That's absolutely so true. And that in itself puts everything into a very powerful perspective and can be very, very humbling. And just to be absolutely grateful and to spend that time to be mindful about those people. And if you can, if there's somebody who could benefit from some time from you, or you can spare a little word or support to, then it's very powerful to be in that position where you can sometimes do that. Absolutely.
A lot of charities I know at this time are always looking for support, and it doesn't have to be money, time, volunteering, food banks, all sorts of things, dropping off tins of food and etc. Makes a difference to all sorts of people. But Rasheed, just want to say that was that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to add just one thing in there, actually, and I hope that maybe we can, hopefully that some of the viewers will remind us in the new year that you raised such a good point that I want to touch on in the new year about when people think about their goals and so on. Sometimes, particularly if somebody's going on this journey of self-discovery, that thing about volunteering or doing something that actually has, in a way that doesn't have directly to do with their life, could be one of the most powerful ways to help somebody find their way in life. I certainly know from in my own past when I volunteered, it was one of the things that was most very powerful. So it's a really important point to just be mindful of about when we're beginning to look at the new year. Is there something else that perhaps you could do or do for someone else or for somewhere else, or that there's something else that you could do or volunteer or give or whatever or contribute that actually could really unlock new layers in terms of where it is that you are. And I think that's really important from this whole evolved heart space. And I'm so glad you raised that, because it means that it's not just about us or immediacy, it's about us in the world. How is it that we can be in the world? And I think that's a beautiful point to begin to wrap up. How is it that one can be in the world? And very often it's that rounds off one's sense of fulfillment, one's sense of contribution, one's sense of connection to the whole of everything and who it is that we are here on this wonderful planet at this wonderful period of time.
Absolutely. Well said. And hopefully, we'll be, the Mayan calendar won't be kicking in on on the 21st, 2012. But no, that's brilliant, Rasheed. And just want to thank everyone who's taken the time to watch us live. And Rasheed, thanks for sharing again your knowledge.
A real pleasure. A real pleasure. And I just want to say something on that, Tim, just before we close, I just want to say that's a really interesting point, isn't it? That's a really lovely point to bring in, actually, fun enough. Lots of people have been pointing at, as we get to the end of this year, this magical year, 2012, the Olympics, Jubilee, this globally, and so on. And for some people, it's like the changing of a change of an era in terms of all the things been going financial. Some people talking about the age of Aquarius, this, that. It's always going to be the best and the worst of times. In many ways, it's always going to be the best and the worst of times. But with an evolved heart, with an evolved consciousness, one can really make the best of one's time and one's the amount of time that one has, and one can be really, really, really present and best able to create the best present and the best possibilities for oneself and best appreciate one's life and all life. So I think it's a really, really interesting time to be thinking about actually how is it I can actually be very present, live, give of my best, and actually enjoy, appreciate, and not hold myself back and not be waiting another year for stuff to happen. I think that's really, really important for us to be kind of really mindful about living now, appreciating every single moment, and making your tomorrow's today, which is the only place where you can actually create.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'll just read out a quote, that we shared on our Facebook page, which is, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. And that's a quote by Babatunde Olatunji, which, it's a great quote, isn't it? So let's go forth with that in mind.
Let's go forth with it. But I think the thing is that it's important that it's lived. We've got this is the thing, isn't it? And the reason for that reflection, we have so much wisdom, so much knowledge within us and around us, and it's about living from that space, and that's what it's about. So it's really about you've really got to embody this stuff. It's about just living from that space and just deciding that that's just how it is. Internalize it. And again, I can't wait to talk again in January, because we're going to be talking about how is that you can really embody your goals as well, just setting them and having them out there. How is it that you can really be at one with them and live from that particular space in everything that you do, and not be held back by fear or concern or waiting or procrastinating or whatever it might well be. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody who's been. I just want to say big thanks to everyone at Evolved Heart who's helped this in this first Evolved Heart year. Thanks, Tom, for doing the wonderful job behind the scenes, in front of the camera, and everything else. I think it's been a fantastic year. We're very grateful here at Evolved Heart, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody in 2013. And on that point, if you like these talks, the live chats, you want to recommend other topics you want us to cover, drop us a line. If you think this could be of use to somebody else, it's about sharing. We were talking about sharing before. Pass it on to somebody, forward it to them. It's going to be here. It's going to be archived in the live chats. Pass on the live links. Keep your eye on the website or on the Facebook page. We're going to post up the next dates. And thank you all very much for supporting us. We're very grateful.
Awesome. Yep.
Happy Christmas.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
All right. Cheers. Merry Christmas.